Hello, friends and enemies. Apologies for the aggression, but today I'm feeling evil. I'm like normal snuggly, but evil. Evil snuggly. Thugly, if you will. And today I'm going to evilly and methodically tier rank every single culprit from all 34 Nancy Drew games based on how compelling of a villain they are. Who's a baddie and who's just bad. Let's start by going through my evil tiers. At the top, we have putting the con in icon, and that's con as in convict, of course. It's a very clever and intellectual pun. Please just ignore my camera glitching. I do not have the time or energy to deal with it right now. This is my villain origin story. I feel like this is a pretty self-explanatory tier. These are absolute icons in the culprit sphere. To make a little rhyme, I'm a poet. I've got a master's degree in creative writing, baby. Below that we have baddies only. For those who are a baddie and a baddie. They're not 100% iconic, but, they're still cool. Below that we have tragedy, and these are for the culprits that just make me sad. A lot of Nancy Drew culprits are real tragic figures, as we shall see. I'm passing out therapy to all the people in this tier like I'm Oprah. You get therapy, you get therapy, you get therapy. And we have certified freaks 7 days a week. These are just totally sick and twisted weirdos. I did previously, when I was workshopping this, have a tier for terrifying, scary villains, but I feel like a lot of those just kind of fall into the certified freak category, so I got rid of it. My penultimate tier is participation medal. These are for culprits where it's like, they were there, they did an evil deed, but not with any particular panache or style, I say all the time, and I think the amount of times I say just keeps ramping up. So, by the end of this, I'll probably be saying every other word. I'm so sorry. And my very last tier is criminally embarrassing. These culprits are just embarrassments to the name of villain. 5 years in the slammer for being lame and sucking. They should be ashamed, and I will shame them. How dare you stand where they stood? And by they, I mean the putting the con in icon culprits. You picking up what I'm putting down? I think I did that in the opposite order. I put down before I picked up, but, nobody's perfect, not even YouTubers. Obviously, this video will contain a lot of spoilers. I've currently got all the culprit pictures concealed, but I will momentarily reveal them. So please proceed with caution if you haven't played all the Nancy Drew games yet. As usual, this is all based on personal opinion. I'm not trying to tell you who are objectively the best and worst villains, just who are the best and worst to me. Wait. Evil Snuggly wouldn't say that. Actually, I'm right about everything, and the rest of you are wrong.
Time to cook.
Okay, first up, we have this guy whom secrets can kill. I don't know, man. He's literally just a guy. I don't think I even know his name. Is this Mitch Dillon? I'm unsure, to be honest. But he's got a gun, and Nancy gets to steal it from him and threaten him, which I think is pretty cool. But embarrassing for this grown evil man to get so easily overwhelmed by two teenage girls, by which I mean Nancy and Connie. Never underestimate girl power, chump. But where do we put him? I don't know if he's criminally embarrassing or if he gets a participation medal. You know what? For the gun, for packing heat, he gets a participation medal because, not every Nancy Drew culprit is daring enough or ballsy enough to do that. In fact, the vast majority, 95% of them are not. So, shout out to this guy, this random guy, for carrying a gun. Okay, then here's Shorty. That voice line haunts my nightmares and my waking dreams. The thing about Shorty is that he's just a silly, goofy guy until he isn't. I'm screaming, crying, throwing up from fear. I do want to try some of his lamb ragu though, you know, Shorty, I'll appreciate you even if those other gosh darn cowpokes won't. Shorty is a baddie. A phrase I never thought would come out of my mouth. Shorty got them apple-bottom jeans boots with the fur. Now that's what I call a baddie, you know? If that's not a baddie, I don't know what is. Jane Penvelin. She is the paradigm of the creepy child trope. Firstly, I think she should have been exercised at birth. That might be controversial, but you know, Mrs. Penvelin should have known when she saw this baby with absolute bobblehead proportions that something was fundamentally wrong with it. Jane is a certified freak. She's a mini psychopath. And honestly, they go way too easy on her at the end of Blackmore. They're like, all is forgiven. I know you were gaslighting your stepmother into believing she was a werewolf. I know you probably would have killed Nancy if you could have, but sweetie, it's okay. I understand you're just going through a phase. And, you know, Ethel was a real bad influence on you. It's like, no. No, this girl, she is deranged. Curse of Blackmore Manor is like a prequel to a full-out horror movie where Jane is just like running around killing her dad and her mom for getting divorced, killing Linda for replacing her mom, killing Ethel for telling her what to do, killing Nigel just because he's there. But luckily, the Nancy Drew games are stuck in time, so time doesn't progress ever, no one ages, nothing goes forward ever, so, you know, that will never happen. Well, speaking of being stuck in time, next up we have Jane from Secret of the Old Clock. I think her real name is Marion. I just think she could be working harder to serve our country. If you know what I mean. I'm not talking about the United States of America. I am not from there. Read between the lines. But to be more serious, I think Jane is not very good, or Jane or Marion, at hiding her secrets. I think it's like pretty obvious pretty early on that she's not who she says she is. Yeah, she's getting a participation medal from me. I like that she drives into a whole pile of pies at the end and is just like swimming in pies. Honestly, a dream for me. I guess that's not really about who she is as a person, so shouldn't count in this, but I make the rules, babe. Laurie Gerard, love her. She knows how to party, you know? Gathering a bunch of mystery-adjacent celebrities on a historic train and faking her own disappearance as motivation for one of them to find an infamous lost mine. Slay. Yeah, Laurie is putting the con in icon. I love when she abandons Nancy in the mine and she's like outlining her plan like she's only just thought of it. Laurie Gerard, you will always be famous. If time did progress in the Nancy Drew universe, she'd probably have come out with a legendary best-selling tell-all memoir by now, and gotta be honest, I would be eating that up. I would be devouring that. Next, Minette. She's serving cat and also jail time. But I think Minette was ahead of her time. I firmly believe she's living on a different level of existence to everyone else. You know, she's out there fighting imaginary elves, while we humans are just on the ground fighting our personal demons. And that's why she's so angry all the time, because no one's operating on the same level of reality as her, and that's frustrating. Minette is an icon. Oh my god, it's my husband, Big Island Mike. You know, he's in Big Island trouble, but you have to admit his evil little plan is absolutely insane and unhinged, and I love it. It's like that domino meme where like the first domino is buying 100,000 horny beetles and the last one is him inheriting land. It's like, how did he come up with this plan? I think Big Island Mike's brain also exists on a different plane of reality to ours. He's playing 4D Wiki Tiki, and we're just playing 2D Wiki Tiki. He is also an icon. There's a lot of icons, a lot of iconic villains in the Nancy Drew series. I don't know what to tell you, but we'll get into some more negative reviews coming up. Speaking of which, it is Uncle Beach / Wait, Uncle Beach, Detective Beach / Uncle Steve, but more like Detective Beach. I hate this disgusting little man. He is the human embodiment of a used tissue. His only redeeming quality is that he's one of 2 Nancy Drew culprits to wield the gun. He's kind of criminally embarrassing, but I think the gun, again, just bumps him up to getting a participation medal. Like, he's not weird enough to be a certified freak. I mean, I don't know anything about his personal life, but from what I've seen, he's not freaky enough. Then we have Pua Mapu, who, as we all know, is the daughter of Big Island Mike, and personally, I think she's more victim than villain. Like, we all agree that she was just going along with her Big Island dad's plan because she's a minor and accustomed to obeying parental authority, right? But Pua is a Y2K it girl. She should be on the cover of 17 magazine, not out in the jungle releasing horny bugs. Born to slay, forced to spray beetle pheromones. Truly a tragic story. She is a baddie. Okay, Yanni Volkstaya, he, is doing a lot. He's icing stairs, he's exploding various outbuildings, he's poisoning potato salads, he's throwing rocks through windows, he's skiing at an Olympic level, and he's looking for uranium. He's booked and busy, and he still has time to get his squats in. Pretty impressive guy. My conspiracy theory is that the avalanches in White Wolf of Icicle Creek were caused by the clap of his cheeks. Ow-woo, am I right, ladies? I really wish none of those words had come out of my mouth. Anyway, Yanni, sure, he can be a baddie. I think, judging from some of his assets, definitely a baddie. Renee from Legend of the Crystal Skull. She has utterly unhinged energy, from her mysterious concoctions to her haunted bedroom to this face. She's absolutely this close to Mick freaking losing it, barely keeping it together. She is a certified freak. I firmly believe that she has never had a normal thought in her life. Probably because of those mushrooms. They do not look healthy. That's like the biggest red flag a mushroom could produce. And she's just like, la la la, drinking my delicious shroom juice. In 2024, she'd definitely be selling her mushroom tonic on TikTok and be facing numerous lawsuits. Oh, Helena, girl boss. She's the head of a criminal organization, and she's slaying the house down boots. She's the girl who can do it all. I am deeply, perhaps unhealthily obsessed with her. She's 100% an icon to me. She is vastly underrated, I think, by the greater Nancy Drew community, but not by me. She's overappreciated by me. I support women's rights and women's wrongs, Helena's wrongs, specifically. I don't support Jane's wrongs, or Renee's wrongs, or the other Jane's wrongs. Just Helena's. Intersectional feminism? We don't know her. Yes, we did. That was a joke. It's Fiona. Can we really call her a culprit? Like, let's be serious here. She's a senile old woman who just enjoys taking joyrides with her jetpack and trapping people in her dead father's lab like they're her pet hamsters, occasionally dropping potatoes and other root vegetables into their enclosure for nourishment. Should we really vilify a woman for that? She's just living her authentic truth, She's a tragedy. She's a victim here. Wait, Pua should also go into the tragedy, actually. She's a baddie, but she's more of a tragedy. Up next is Dwayne, specifically from Stay Tuned for Danger. He is iconic, truly a villain's villain. He is camp. His villain monologue is the blueprint for all villain monologues. More like Owen Slater. Am I right? That would be his drag persona. Okay, the next is Dwayne in Ransom of the Seven Ships. You know when people say about a person, oh, they've let themselves go. I usually think that's a very unkind thing to say, but for Dwayne in Ransom of the Seven Ships, it's so true. Stay tuned for danger. Dwayne would eat Ransom of the Seven Ships Dwayne for breakfast, bones and all. He would just pour maple syrup over him and slurp him up. What am I saying? Anyway, in Ransom of the Seven Ships, Dwayne's become unthreatening, problematic, and unimaginative. Just a pitiful little shrimp of a man. He is a shadow of his former self, a shrimp of his former self. He is criminally embarrassing. Look how the mighty have fallen. Literally from the top tier all the way to the bottom. Started at the top, now we're here. Aren't you embarrassed, Dwayne? You should be fucking embarrassed. That's why he hasn't shown up since Ransom of the Seven Ships. He's just too embarrassed to show his face. Kareen from Waverly Academy. You know, nothing is wrong with her that couldn't be fixed by finding someone that matches her freak, or by having a female English teacher or librarian she could form a borderline unhealthy attachment to, you know? Where to put her? I don't think she's as much a freak as these two gals. I don't think she's quite a tragedy, because, you know, she kind of tried to kill some of her fellow students, and she was blackmailing them, and, you know, just a lot of sordid miscellaneous crimes. I think she's a baddie. Like, trying to split Nancy's head open with that Edgar Allan Poe death trap, that's pretty iconic. Next up, it's freaking Scott from Trail of the Twister. He just gives off the vibe of a teacher who hates teaching, hates his students, and hates himself. But it's not that I don't have sympathy for Scott. Like, he's clearly in a deep depression, which you can tell from his appearance and the state of his office.
Beach.
You live like this. But dude, there's better ways to cope with your mental health crisis than to commit crimes and give your teammates permanent trust issues. Like, gee, I don't know. Therapy? But you know, Scott also gives off the vibes of the type of guy who refuses to admit that he needs therapy. Participation medal for you, Scott. Yeah, he just sucks. That's my very profound final thought about Scott. He just sucks. Next up is possibly my most hated Nancy Drew character, which is Rentaro from Shadow at the Water's Edge. There's a reason you can't spell villain without ill, cause this guy's an absolute sicko. It's just
Fun day.
up to think that faking a haunting with the puppet in the likeness of your girlfriend's recently deceased mother is the best way to convince her to move out with you, you know? Not to mention traumatizing her whole family along the way and tanking their livelihood. Yeah, he's going straight in the sicko bin. This is an unsafe space for Rentaro. Oh my god, Anya from The Captive Curse. I really, admire her commitment to revenge. If boyfriend breaks up with you, most people would eat ice cream and cry. But Anya lies on her resume to get herself employed in a high-level position at her ex's business, then starts dressing up as an off-brand Frankenstein and terrorizing his customers to get his business shut down and consequently ruin his life. No one's doing it like her. This is a level of girl bossery most of us couldn't even conceive. Yeah, she's put in the con and icon. Then we have Brenda from Alibi and Ashes in a lineup of pretty outstanding female villains. I think Brenda could do more to stand out. She wasn't ambitious enough with her impersonation of Nancy. Like, she could have had more fun with it. Made Nancy look like a total wild child. Like, ooh, look, Nancy Drew is streaking naked down the main street of River Heights. Or something of that ilk, you know? I'm tempted to put her in tragedy because, have you seen that hairstyle? Yeesh. I've never said yeesh in my entire life before. But anyway, I think she's going in participation medal. She tried. She had some good ideas, The execution just wasn't up to my personal standards. But next we have Abdullah, who is the culprit from Tomb of the Lost Queen. Honestly, I try to avoid replaying Tomb of the Lost Queen, so I don't really remember that much about him. I think he calls Nancy darling, though, which makes him creepy, and not in like a fun, spooky sense, but in the restraining order sense. It's not enough to make him a certified freak. It just makes him a creepy guy, so he gets a participation medal, I suppose. Then we have a murderer, Victor from The Deadly Device. You know, being a murderer automatically gives him some cool villain points, but honestly, I can't find a man who wears a polo all that sinister. It's just like the least sinister article of clothing to me. And Deadly Device is another game that I don't really replay that often, so I don't remember that much about him. So I guess a participation medal. Then we have Clara Thornton from Ghost of Thornton Hall. Not now, honey. Mother is mothering. But seriously, she, to me, is quite a tragic figure. Like, at the end of Thornton Hall, when she's so ready to just let herself be killed because she thinks she deserves it. Oh, it makes me emotional. She just made a mistake, okay? Yeah, that mistake was letting her sister die in a fire that she herself started on purpose to scare Charlotte, but it was an honest-to-goodness mistake. I am a Clara apologist and proud. She, to me, absolute icon. If Clara Thornton is a peak, we now have Ewan, who is a trough. Did that make sense? Did that even make sense? This man, he's a trough. Actually, I think he's a little rat man. He looks like a diseased medieval peasant. And he deserves to be put in the stocks and have tomatoes and rotten eggs thrown at him by dysentery-infected townsfolk. They really knew how to do things in the old days. There's no category for gross little men. That was a real oversight on my part. I feel like I don't actually remember him that well, again, probably because I try to avoid playing the Silent Spy. It's not one of my favorites. I don't think he ever really stood out in the first place, but to me he's kind of on a similar level to Detective Beach over here, but he doesn't wield a gun, which makes him lesser, but honestly, biological terrorism is also pretty bold for the Nancy Drew series, so sure, I'll give you a participation medal as long as I don't have to touch you. Okay, then we have Lewis Chandler, who is from Message in a Haunted Mansion, of course. His last words at the end of the game, if you alert him, are somehow both iconic and pathetic.
So long, losers.
Interesting, Lewis, because I went to Loser Island and they all knew you there. Don't ask what I was doing at Loser Island. I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, if I hadn't made it clear, I think Lewis in general leans more towards the pathetic than the iconic. You just know he doesn't wash his hands after he pees. He's also a gross little man. Yeah, sure, you can get a participation medal. I mean, each of them has kind of like an iconic element to most of them, except, you know what? Abdullah, he doesn't threaten anyone with a gun. He doesn't impersonate anyone. He doesn't use biological warfare. I wouldn't go quite so far as to say it's embarrassing. Would I? No, maybe if I played Tomb of the Lost Queen more recently, I would go that far, but since I haven't, I daren't. I mustn't. Oh my god, speaking of forgettable, we have Kiri from the Shattered Medallion, literally the definition of forgettable. Like, I could see this woman on the street and I wouldn't know her. A good villain should not be forgettable. So Kiri, you are permanently embarrassing. Like, I honestly forget what she even does in that game. I don't remember her villain monologue, if she even has one. She barely stands out as a character in that game. Honestly, the only memorable characters in that game for me, other than Bess and George, are Sunny, because of course it's Sunny June, and Patrick, because his dialogue is just just unhinged, and not in like a positive way, in like a what the hell is he talking about at any given moment way. Anyway, it's not about Patrick right now.
Fun day.
Patrick, it's not about Patrick, it's not even about Sunny. They are not culprits. I don't care about them right now. Next we have the whole gang of meddling theater kids from Labyrinth of Lies: Xenia, Thanos, Grigor, and Niobe. I think as a concept, it's really fun that they're all in on it together, but on an individual level, I don't really care about any of them. Out of all of them, I think Xenia is probably the coolest and most interesting to me. I love how at the end of the game, she takes the throne and just really locks into dominatrix mode, but she's a bit like Brenda to me in that she could be doing more. I feel like in this era of Nancy Drew games, if a female suspect looks like this, you just know she's the culprit. You know what I mean? But I'll put her in baddies, just for like that one shot of her, and I really hope I'm not misremembering this, and this is showing a weird side of my psyche, but there's this shot where Nancy's like looking up at her. I hope I'm not having like a weird like Freud moment, you know, like eh. Let's move on. Thanos definitely self-identifies as an alpha, certified freak. Like, I don't know that much about the man, to be honest, but I know enough. He literally fucking growls at Nancy. He's either a furry or like the type of guy who, when he was a kid, used to pretend to be like a wolf on the playground and get really into it and like take it back into the classroom and be like, I'm the leader of this pack and you have to do what I say. Or, you know, both is possible. Grigor, he needs to go to Yanni's personal trainer because that ass is flatter than his personality. Not that that's saying much. You know what? Grigor falls into criminally embarrassing for me. I feel like I'm kind of body shaming Grigor, and I feel bad about that, but literally I don't remember enough about his personality to say anything else about him. And yeah, Niobe also, she's like really meek, like too timid to even make much of an impression on me. But from my recollection, I think she's like kind of been forced into this situation, so I guess I'll consider her a tragedy. Why did I say consider in that weird way? Consider her? Oh my god, next we have Soren from Sea of Darkness. I can fix him, brackets, platonic. Like, we would be besties, you know? We could have little matching charms, like the best friend necklaces, but charms, and he could put his on his axe, and I could put mine on like my phone or something, I don't know. But really, he is iconic for using that historic Viking axe to threaten Nancy. Pretty legendary. I know he shouldn't have kidnapped and attempted murder, but really, he deserves better. He was treated so poorly by the town. Like, he was just done so dirty. He's a tragedy. Like, the absolute prejudice in Skiprot is disgusting. This man got, like, basically hate crimed into being a villain. I don't hold him responsible for that. Sorry, I'm getting my lip gloss out. Then we have Alicia from Midnight in Salem. She's just like whiny, bratty, and not in the way. Where, I went to law school. Where, I didn't get to do my land development. Where, why didn't you let me bulldoze that heritage site? Girl, just shut up and go to prison. But it is kind of iconic that she used ergot to give everyone ghost hallucinations, especially because of that theory that ergot's hallucinogenic properties had a hand in the original Salem witch trials. Alicia said, history repeats itself because I will make it repeat itself. She gets a participation medal, I suppose. Then we have Lisa from Treasure in the Royal Tower. She's just a girl, you know? And diamonds are a girl's best friend. So who am I to deny her her best friend? Honestly though, as a writer, I support her motivations. We aren't paid enough, and no one was using that diamond. Justice for Lisa. She's a baddie. She also has one of the best villain methods for stopping Nancy in her, like, spicy devil villain venom, and some of the best last words.
Darn you, Nancy Drew! You're the worst friend a diamond thief could ever have.
Like, Nancy brought her down, but at least she got the last word in, you know, the definitive last word, because you know nothing Nancy could say after that could top that sentence. Joseph from the final scene, we all know he is tragic. He deserves therapy. Lots and lots of therapy. Taylor Sinclair from Secret of the Scarlet Hand, he is evil John Waters. Like, that comb-over, truly diabolical. I wouldn't want to be within 5 feet of a grown man who has that mustache and calls himself Big Bunny. No, you little freak. Emily from Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake, who doesn't love a feral woman? But she's not quite as feral as like someone like Renee. She can at least present as being fairly normal for most of the game. I'm gonna call her a baddie. Then we have Elliot Chen from The Haunted Carousel, and in my opinion, he is the most likable character from The Haunted Carousel, though his competition is a little weak. We've got the human personification of depression, cursed Easy Bake Oven, Ingrid Niacin Corey, and Harl Blart Mall Cop. Yes, slim pickings there. And I would say he's relatable from his, like, whole procrastination shtick, but we all know at the end of the day that that is fake. He actually is not a procrastinator. He just basically has a side hustle, which is selling forged carousel horses on the black market. But he's still a baddie to me. I also like his villain confrontation. It's a lot like Shorty's, where he's kind of been like this, like, cool pal throughout the whole game, and then at the end he's like, I'm so evil and I'm gonna make a really evil face, and then Nancy throws jewels in his face and hits him with this sign. Oh, it's just a lot of fun. Andy Jason from Danger on Deception Island also has a really iconic villain confrontation. Say goodnight, Nancy. Him literally about to strangle the life out of Nancy, and he gets bonked on the head by an air canister thrown by a whale. It's fantastic, iconic, legendary even. Villain confrontations in the older Nancy Drew games were just like so good, like on a different level. Shay Mandy's as charmless as a plank of wood, or as the kids would say, he's lacking in riz. I also really like the fake out at the end of that game where you kind of are made to think Katie is actually responsible, but that doesn't really factor into this ranking. But it is cool how he kind of like seems to be helping you out by driving you out to the freighter and all that stuff. Do I consider him a baddie, or does he get a participation medal? Oh, I need like a secret 6th tier? How many tiers do I have currently? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I need a secret 7th tier. No, participation medal. But in my heart, he rests somewhere between baddies and participation medal, which honestly Elliot also does. Is Elliot deserving of being in baddies only? This is giving me pause. Because Elliot and Andy to me are kind of on a similar level. Just there's more interesting characters in Danger on Deception Island. Like, I'm heavily invested in the Katie Firestone and Jenna Dublin are ex-girlfriends theory. Oh, you know what? I put Xenia up here. I'll let Elliot stay. Now I feel like I was too kind on Xenia. Because, like, for most of the game, honestly, she doesn't matter to me. It's just, like, at the very end where she kind of pulls out some of the stops. Not all of the stops. Just some of the stops. Anyway, this is just to say this tier list is actually nuanced. There's a lot more gray than there is black and white. Okay, then we got our 2 most recent culprits, both from Mystery of the Seven Keys, another game with multiple culprits. First up, we have Vladina. She's got a fun-ass bob and a fun-ass attitude. I kind of love a mean woman in a Nancy Drew game, though. She knows her worth. Vladina said, "You should see me in a crown," and then she made that happen. Even if she got a very literal brain zap because of it. I think that's pretty iconic. She can be a baddie. And then finally, we have Elka. She's a woman in STEM. If by STEM you mean scheming these evil machinations. Machinations has got to be one of my favorite words. I feel like she's also kind of a baddie. Like, I love the whole comparison between her and Nancy and how they act as foils to each other. And I think she's got that whole shtick going on that a lot of the Nancy Drew culprits do, like Elliot, of appearing pretty innocent for most of the game, which is honestly one of my favorite kinds of Nancy Drew culprits, where they don't really realize they're a villain. Alka specifically, she really, I think, believes in her own motivations, even if from like a different point of view, an outside point of view, they're really messed up and making her do what she does. Anyway, thanks Mystery of the Seven Keys for giving us 2 more evil women. I love evil women. That's all, folks. That's my definitive tier list. Let me know in the comments who your favorite culprit from the Nancy Drew games is. I'm off to do some evil deeds, like slinking around in the shadows, tying innocent maidens to train tracks, cackling, scheming, skulking, poisoning chalices, things like that, you know. My hobbies.